guys, so today we're moving on into Unit 8, which is dealing with some more triangle stuff, and we are specifically looking at something called a special right triangle, meaning there's a special situation, and that special situation is when the degrees of that triangle are 45, 45, 90 right triangle, meaning the degrees are 45, 45, 90. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to look at is some key points. So again, I have a right triangle, and anytime I have a right triangle with the degree measure of 90, 45, 45 means it is a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. And whenever this happens, a special situation happens with a ratio of the sides. So right now, it says since a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle is isosceles, the following is true in this instance. The legs are always the same length. So that means the sides that are not my hypotenuse are always going to be the same length. So my two legs are always going to be the same measure. And then if I was to work out the Pythagorean Theorem and to work it out and simplify, it would then mean the hypotenuse is always going to be the leg times the square root of 2. So if you look, I have my two legs. If you look, they're the same, x and x. And then if I knew the measure of one of those legs, all I would have to do to find the hypotenuse is multiply that leg by the square root of 2. And so now in this special situation, if I knew one measurement of one side, I could then find the measurement of all the other sides without doing any other math, just knowing that that works out, okay? So I'm going to take this information and I'm going to apply it to my examples here, okay? Let's look at example number 1. Okay, so on example number 1, it tells me to find the measures of the missing sides. So right now, if we look, I know that this is a right triangle because there's a 90-degree angle. And if you look, both of these sides are marked, meaning that's isosceles. So now I know that my two base angles are going to be congruent. So if this is 90, that means these two angles are going to add up to 90, which means they're both going to be 45. So this is indeed a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. So now anytime you have a 45, 45, 90 right triangle, I know that I can use the template. So if I look up top, I know that my hypotenuse is always going to be the leg times the square root of 2. So I'm going to do the leg times the square root of 2. I'm just representing my leg as x. And then my two legs, meaning my other two measurements, are going to be x and x. So if I look right now, I've already been given a leg. So technically my leg is going to be equal to 6, so x equals 6. So I know my two legs are going to be congruent. So this x is going to equal 6. That means this leg is going to equal 6. And so now all I have to do to find my hypotenuse, I know that since it's a 45, 45, 90, I'm going to take the leg and I'm going to multiply by the square root of 2. I do not know why I put the square root of 6. So my final answer is going to be 6 square root 2 in radical form, or I could put a decimal in there and then solve it and find the decimal. All right, so now looking at example number 2. So the same instance again. On example number 2, it says it wants me to find the measure of x. Okay, so now I know by looking at this triangle, I have a right triangle and it's isosceles. So that means my two base angles are equal. Since all the angles add up to 90, this one's 90. So these two angles would add up to 90 to make up the rest of the 180. So that means this would be a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. So since this is a 45, 45, 90 right triangle, my two legs are going to be congruent. So if this is x, that means this is x. And then if this is my hypotenuse, I'm going to take that leg and I'm going to multiply by the square root of 2. So let's just think. If I knew my leg, I would multiply to get to my hypotenuse, which is 16. So if I multiply to get to the hypotenuse, to get back to my leg, I have to do the opposite, which is divide. So since I'm multiplying by the square root of 2, I'm actually going to divide by the square root of 2 to get back. So I'm going to take the leg, or the hypotenuse, which is 16, and to find this, I'm going to divide by the square root of 2. Okay? So right now, by looking at this, this is not going to be perfect. So now I have to do something called rationalizing the denominator in order to do this. So I'm going to end up multiplying by the square root of 2 over square root of 2 here. Okay? So 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is going to give me 2. Then 16 square root of 2 is going to go on top. And so now I can actually simplify this by doing 16 divided by 2, which is going to end up giving me 8 square root 2. So that means x, or both of my legs, are going to be 8 square root 2 in this instance. Okay? And also, if it asks for an exact decimal, you could type these into the calculator and it would give me an exact decimal. But normally, it's going to ask you to keep it in radical form. Okay? And again, I could check my answer. If I multiply by the square root of 2, square root of 2 times square root of 2 would be the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. 8 times 2 would give you 16, so it worked out. Okay? So again, if you are given the hypotenuse, I know to get from the leg to the hypotenuse, I multiply by the square root of 2. So to go back, I would divide to get back to the leg. Okay? Let's jump over to example number 3. All right, so on example number 3, it says we need to find the measures of the missing sides. So again, I know I have a right triangle here. And so I have a 90 degree. If you look, my base angles are going to be congruent. So that means this is going to be a 45, 45, 90 right triangle because my base angles are congruent. So this would be 45 and 45 here. So since I have a 45, 45, 90 right triangle, I know that my two legs are going to be congruent. So that's why I'm writing x and x. I'm doing the template here. And then to find my hypotenuse, I'm going to do x times the square root of 2. So right now, I know that x is going to be 6 square root 2. So now, in order to get my other leg, it's going to be the same measure. So x over here, or c in this instance, would be 6 square root 2. And then now, I know to find the hypotenuse, I'm going to multiply the leg by the square root of 2. So my leg measurement is 6 square root 2. So I'm going to do 6 square root 2 times the square root of 2, because this is my leg, right? 2 times 2 would give you 4, square root of 4. Square root of 4 would end up giving you 2. 6 times 2 would end up giving you 12. So ladies and gentlemen, your leg or your hypotenuse here would end up being 12. Okay? So again, the legs are congruent because it's a 45, 45, 90. Then to find my hypotenuse, I'm going to multiply by the square root of 2. Okay? All right, guys, and lastly, again, I always do this. This is your challenge question. If you can go and you can work this challenge question on your own and you know how to work it through, then that means you're probably ready for your skill check. If you're having trouble working on this, you can call me over. I can help you out. That'll probably mean you need a little bit more help of understanding on how to do this. Other than that, good luck on your skill check. Let me know if you need any help.